Hi, Dennis. What book are you reading now?
Oh, this book, it is entitled Stranger in a Strange Land. You know this book?
Yeah, it's exactly like the Jungle Book, but only it's set in space and has has Martians instead of wolves. So maybe it's not exactly like the Jungle Book. How does the story start again? I haven't read it for a long time. I forgot the story.
Oh, let me tell you about the story. The story is about Michael Smith's life. He was born on the first manned mission to Mars. Unfortunately, everyone in the mission dies except for the baby Mike, and he is stranded on Mars to be raised by Martians. 20 years later, a second ship called the Champion goes to goes to Mars to discover not only the Martians but to the crew's immense surprise, a fully grown Mike. The Martian Old Ones, heads of the Martian society, decide to send Mike to Earth. They want him to grok his homeworld to intimately and completely understand it and its inhabitants. On Earth, Mike is immediately transferred to Bethesda Hospital to sleep off a life threatening case of G fatigue. When he meets Gillian Jill Birdman, at first Jill decides she wants nothing to do with the man from Mars. She changes her mind when her journalist friend Ben Caston informs her that Mike is not a patient of the hospital so much as a political prisoner.
Yeah, I remembered it now. It seems Mike is the legal successor to a couple billion dollars worth of inheritance and might be, according to the Earth law, the sole owner and the sovereign of the planet Mars. Ben believes that the politicians are trying to use Mike to further their own agenda, and he wants to bring the story to light. It's that age-old story of journalist meets dirty politician. Journalist writes article, you know how these things go. Ben tries to spring Mike from his sterile prison only to find the man from Mars has been replaced with a fake. After the failed attempt, Ben goes missing and Jill worries for his safety. She finds the real Michael Smith is still in the hospital and escaped. Two government agents track her down, but Mike uses his super Martian powers and sends both men into another dimension. Now a fugitive and a tad freaked out about the whole agents winked from existence thing, Jill decides to ask for the help of Jubal Harshaw, writer, gourmet, lawyer, philosopher, doctor, and crescenti old man extraordinaire. Jubal agrees and Jill and Mike stay at his house.
Yet then, during his stay, Mike begins to learn how to interact in human culture. You see, although his body may be that strapping 20-year-old human, his mind is completely Martian. So Mike has to learn everything from scratch, from tying his shoelaces to understand human religion. Eventually, the head of the World Federation, Secretary General Joe Douglas sent troops to capture Mike, but Jubal forces Douglas into negotiations with the man from Mars instead, and even has him release Ben Caston, whom Douglas claims has been on a week-long bender in Mexico. During the conference, Jubal manages to negotiate and bribe his way to victory, arranging it so Mike keeps his inheritance and freedom, and the Martians are recognized as the true pro- proprietors of Mars. Mike's next adventure takes him to a fosterate tabernacle where he hopes to grow religion. In this future, the fosterates are a religious movement that mix gambling, drinking, and sexually with evangelicalism. Just imagine Las Vegas founded by a gang of evangelical preachers instead of the mob. Mike grokes many aspects of the church he finds appealing, but many he views as wrong. Mike and Jill then travel the world together. So Mike and Grok what it means to be human, and Jill can learn the Martian language. He works a variety of jobs from carnival magician to casino game manager and meets Patricia Pywonski, a fosterate completely covered from head to toe in tattoos. Finally, Smith decides it's time to help. Decides it's time he help humanity, and he starts his own church.
Yes, and I remember this. Ben Caxton visit Mike's church of all worlds, and discovers that Mike is teaching his disciples the Martian language, how to grok others, and the Martian understanding of God, which is translated into Thou art God. Once the concepts are mastered, members of the church can access powers similar to Mike's. The whole thing initially repulses Ben, but after talking with Jubal, he decides to return and becomes one of Mike's disciples. Later, Mike's church is burned to the ground, and Jubal rushes to help Mike the one final time. He learns that Mike has been a spy for the Martian Old Ones, who may choose to reorganize human society to remove such things as hate and jealousy, maybe to save them from their own fate. But he feels that he has failed. Jubal convinces Mike that he has done something wonderful for his church, and Mike believes that he groks in fullness now. An angry mob forms outside Mike's church, and when Mike attempts to preach to them, they killed him and turning him into Earth's first Martian martyr. The members of the Church of All Worlds go their separate ways. Now, millionaires thanks to Mike's shrewd business tactics. Jubal begins to write a story titled called A Martian Named Smith. Meanwhile, Mike goes to the afterlife to continue his work helping humanity. What a nice story, right?
Yeah. By the way, since you've remembered already the story, I have a question for you. What are the events that are not very practical here on Earth?
Well, what I'm thinking of is that, for example, Mike is human, but he was Uh, he was being raised by Martians on Mars. So it's like, oh, he's from Earth, but then he was raised as a Martian. Then second is that Martians have existed on Mars, in but the scientists say that there's no creatures living on Mars. Then lastly, Valentine Michael Smith, human born on Mars to Earth explorers aboard the spaceship Champion. He's orphaned as an infant. Mike is raised by the Martian race. He grows up with human physiology but Martian psychology. The second main character, Jubal Harshaw. He's a famous doctor, writer, and lawyer. He has lived a long life full of adventure and accomplishments. He espouses an individualist philosophy that is very influential on Mike, who comes to think of Jubal as a father. Third person, Jillian Boardman, or known as Jill. She's a courageous and confident young nurse. Her friend and old flame, newspaper reporter Ben Caxton, convinces her to help him rescue Mike from his enforced captivity and at her hospital. Ben Caxton. He's a newspaper reporter who writes a macranking political column that has earned him the ire of the Earth's government. So now it's my turn to ask you a question. What lesson did you learn from this story?
Me? You're asking me? What I learned from the story is that observing from others could expand your ideas in life.
Yeah, that's what I have learned too in that book. Thank you for your time, Dennis. I had a great time talking about that book, that sci-fi book.
No problem, Wawa. I had a great time too. See you. God bless.
Bye.